Okay, I think we're ready to start. I can see that people have joined us. Okay, that's brilliant. Welcome everybody to our Business Taskforce. We're so pleased to be back. We had a bit of a break over the summer when we thought we were coming out of this these interesting times, but we're now facing a second lockdown. Interesting news this morning, the Bank of England has announced that 150 billion is to be injected into the economy. This obviously coincides with the start of the second national lockdown, which, as Dawn and I were discussing earlier, is slightly different, a different feel to the first, we think. But parts of West London are likely to be hit up to 5 times harder by the combined economic impact of COVID and Brexit than the rest of the capital. This is according to a local West London pressure group, the Harrow and Hillingdon European Movement. Of the 9 London boroughs likely to still be badly affected by late 2021, 5 are located in a roughly 13-mile long, 10-mile wide corridor across West London, which includes Hammersmith and Fulham, Ealing, Hounslow, Hillingdon and Kensington. It is worrying times, but I'm so pleased that our task force is all back together, which is lovely to see everybody. Cllr Shantanu Rajawat is having a few internet problems, but will hopefully be joining us soon. But I'll just quickly go through who we've got here today. We have Nicholas Woolf, whose coming plan this was all those months ago, from Nicholas Woolf Solicitors. We have Dawn Edwards, the Real Business Club, an HMRC expert. We have Tony Ryan, Branduin Business Support, an expert on government business support programs. Helen Roberts from CPG, more business advice support. Oasis accountants, Prashant Yadav, and then Marcus Grunwald from FinPoint, a financier, the go-to man for loans. And then last but very much not least is Alan Rides, MD of Hounslow Chamber, West London Local Chambers, Kickstart and International Trade expert. Okay, now we've had a few questions sent in beforehand. One is for the local authority, and Shantanu is not here, so that'll have to wait. Tony, you were saying that you had this a PDF information sheet regarding all the loans and things. What's going on with Sybil's and the bounce back loans? Are you able to give an update?
Tony, you're on a mute. You need to unmute. Yeah.
As I say, if I had a quid every time I've done that, I'd be a very rich man. Sorry, I was saying I've sent Sally some slides as a PDF file last night, just to give you a quick update on what's happening with the various government funding options. So that's, I'm just going quickly through my own notes. So I've got some notes on the self-employment income support scheme, the job retention scheme, the bounce back loan and the business interruption loan. The government's also announced some lockdown grants, and I've got another couple of notes in about the deferring tax. They've slightly updated that, or at least brought us up to date on it. So in rough terms, with the bounce back loan and the business interruption loan, the really good news for the bounce back loan is not only has the scheme now been extended to the end of January 21, it was due to end in September, then was extended to the end of this month, and now has been automatically extended to the 31st of January. The other really good news is they've announced that, those of you who may not remember, the scheme allows you to borrow a maximum of £50,000, which is capped at 25% of your turnover. So obviously you'd need to be turning over £200,000 a year to get £50,000. But as I've said, those companies that didn't apply for the full amount they were entitled to will now be able to go back and apply back up to that cap, whatever it may be. So if your turnover is £100,000, your cap would be 25,000. But if you only borrowed 10 so far, you can go back and borrow the balance. So that was good news. And again, with the business interruption loan scheme, again, it's been extended to the end of January. I don't think you can, there's no cap on that one as such. I mean, it was up to 5 million. I suppose that's a cap of some kind, but the other good news with the CBILS or business interruption loans, it's known, is the banks did start making it slightly easier to go through. They asked for a lot less documentation than they had started. So that's a very sort of quick summary of what's happened with the bounce back loan and the business interruption loan.
Thank you very much. Marcus, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Tony summarized it really well. Maybe just to say, so on the CBIL side, there is in effect also a turnover cap, in the sense that if you wanted to borrow 5 million, your turnover needs to also be significantly larger than that, because the test that sits behind CBILS is also ability to repay. So let's say if you're turning over 1 million, you couldn't then go and like borrow 5 million. That wouldn't work by way of ratios, but it's not as formulaic as bounce back loans. So it isn't written into the product that it's 25% of turnover, but yeah, there is realistically, your turnover needs to be larger than the amount you're looking to borrow, which is the normal situation for lending. So that's the only thing I can add there.
Thank you very much. And Prashant, have you anything to add?
Time for repayment's been extended, hasn't it? Isn't it 10 years now rather than 5?
Yes. Just to add to Tony and Marcus, this repayment has been extended for bounce back up to 10 years. And again, it's pay as you grow. So as you're growing your business, you can make a payment. You can always have your updated balance sheet and updated P&L given to the bank. And if you're not doing well, you can take some more time for making a payment. Another important point is you can also apply multiple CBILS. Multiple CBILS can be applied with different lenders. Where the personal guarantee has to be given, it's up to 250,000. So no lender will give you more than 250,000 without a personal guarantee. But you can apply, a company can apply 150,000 at least 2 or 3 places with the private lenders. Banks lately has been a little bit conservative while lending because of the business scenario. They are lending very, very scarcely out there. But there are a lot of private lenders out there. There is Funding Circle, and there are a lot of other lenders out there who are giving the loans. Even if you've taken the CBIL loan, as long as your business is viable and able to sustain, you can apply multiple CBIL loans without giving the personal guarantee.
Yeah, just to clarify that, if you go onto the British Business Bank website, there are over, I think it's just over now, over 100 lenders that are approved. They don't all do loans. Some of them do overdrafts, some of them do asset finance, some do invoice financing, but there is a wide selection on there. They will, I must add, normally charge higher rates of interest. The banks do, but it's worth looking at. And Nicholas's point about the extension was very valid, but that was actually announced quite a while ago. I was only really trying to look at the things that are going to happen because of the second lockdown or whatever. I don't want to call it lockdown 2.0, which I saw someone had referred to it as. That drove me insane. But yeah, so I was just trying to cover what's going to change, what was announced in the last couple of days. So I'm glad we've also got our, excuse me, our councillor on board now.
Yes,
because one of the announcements they made, I was saying before we started, there are going to be a number of local authority grants, rather like we had the first time round based on rateable values. But again, they've announced all the detail, but none of the information about how to apply for it or when to apply for it. So in the slides I've put together, there is a link to Hounslow's website where it gives you all that information, but it does actually say, you know, we'll post information here as soon as we get it. So they're no better off than I am.
Is some of this going to be at the council's discretion as well?
You've got the man here to tell you.
Yes.
I think the answer may be, we don't know yet.
That leads in very nicely. Obviously, I have a question for you, Shantanu. Lovely to see you again. Thank you for coming. This is one for the local authority. What grant funding is still available via the amount of additional funding local authorities recently received from tranche 4 of central government support? And what extra funding do they expect to have made available with the announcement of the second lockdown? According to the questioner, Ealing received 7,802,394, and Hounslow received 7,861 and 154. I don't know where these figures come from, but anyway, if you could tell us, you did drop me a lovely email yesterday talking about what is coming, filtering down from central government. So what's going to be available?
Yeah, thank you very much, Sally, and good morning, everyone. Apologies for my lateness. Obviously, following the vote last night in support of the second sort of national restrictions or lockdown, as we're not allowed to call it, the local authorities have or will be receiving additional sums to support businesses. The guidance was only actually released on Tuesday, so my office is still pouring through it. But there is an element, again, based on rateable value, and I'm just going to call up my email. So for properties with a rateable value of 15,000 or under, for the 4-week period, assuming that it is only 4 weeks, the grant will be 1,334. For rateable values between 15,000 and 51,000, the rateable value, the grant will be £2,000 for the 4 weeks. And for a rateable value of £51,000 or over, the grant amount will be 3,000 for the 4 weeks. So that is for the period of the lockdown. We will also be receiving some additional money, which will have some discretion around it. We think it would be around £5.4 million. And I suppose the slight caveat on that is that we're not entirely sure what we will be directed to use that money for. Plus, it has to last us till the end of March 2021, I think. So it's a long period of time with a significant amount of money. So we're poring over the details on that. And I'm pushing my officers to get out some guidance and the process for an application by the end of next week, hopefully. So obviously, once I've got that information, I'll pass it on to you, Sally, so that you can distribute it amongst your networks as well.
That would be lovely. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Right.
Question, if that's okay, Shantanu. In respect to these grants, that my understanding is, and I'm not sure anyone knows the answer, is they're restricted to businesses which have been adversely affected by what we can't call lockdown. And I'm not quite sure how adversely affected they have to be, whether they've actually need to have shut down or closed, as to whether they get those grants or not. Do you know the answer?
I don't exactly, because I haven't yet read the guidance and the accompanying paperwork to it. But yes, my understanding is you're right. There is that sort of test of being adversely affected, and we're not quite sure what that actually means just yet. But we will get to the bottom of it, Nick.
If I can just add, from what I read last night, there's sort of 2 elements, well, 3 elements to it. So there's this additional funding that he's just mentioned that no one really knows what that's going to be for. But of the bits they've laid out, the first bit, which he was just talking about, the up to 15,000, 15 to 51 and 51 above, that's all quite clear. But it then says all other businesses going right back to March that have been affected, whether, because don't forget we had this whole tier 2, tier 3 thing, which they'd announced they were going to offer some help for. So they're saying businesses can go right back to March from the first lockdown and make claims. So it's still a little bit woolly at the moment, but the good news is it's not just if you've had to shut because of lockdown. All those that were affected by these early closures and takeaway only and all these sort of things in hospitality and catering and all that area, there's a bit of a lifeline for them to be able to claim some money back, because they had been excluded from all of this, a lot of them. So it's still a little bit grey because they haven't really announced how that's going to happen, but they have definitely said that you didn't have to be shut down completely you could just be adversely affected. So that's quite good news. Well, probably until we get the fine print.
There's a question just come into the Q&A. Is there a non-retail premises grant for this period of lockdown 2.0? Sorry, folks. Shantanu, do you know of anything?
A non-retail premises grant. So my assumption would be where they're talking about rateable value of the property. I would imagine that would also cover non-retail premises that can satisfy the requirement of having to have closed because of the restrictions. I would imagine it would come under that, but I can take that specific question away and just double check it. I don't want to give
I will make a note of that.
Yeah, I think, Sally, the difference was that the last time round, when we had this banding of up to 15,000 and 15 to 51, it was talking about hospitality and leisure only.
Oh, okay.
Whereas this seems to be a generic. It says all businesses that are forced to shut or have been adversely affected. So that's the really good news with this. It doesn't seem to be limited to hospitality and leisure.
Okay. Thank you for that. Right. Okay, this is sort of a generic question, and I think maybe Dawn and Ray could have a go at it. Since reopening, we've had to spend money on getting COVID secure. We have had to reduce capacity to comply with social distancing, and people have stayed away due to their own worries. This has left many businesses like mine in a worse situation than during lockdown, as landlords and other suppliers have not been as supportive and have expected full payments, while sales have been as low as 30% of normal business. The government had talked about discretionary grants devolved to local councils to administer for businesses to ask for grant support backdated to August if adversely affected by coronavirus restrictions. Has Hounslow Council received this funding, and if so, when will they start the application process? But can we, before we answer that one, which I think you probably already covered, Shantanu, Helen and Dawn, I mean, there's going to be huge numbers of businesses in this, similar positions. What are your thoughts, Dawn?
Thank you, Sally. I suppose my view is about payments due to HMRC in the sense that what people have paid and are due to be paid, and there is a lot of work going on with HMRC at the moment to actually spread the cost of payments that are due. And we had previously the VAT period that they didn't have to pay until next March, and now they've extended that until March 2022. So there's an extension on that. There's also an extension on for self-employed. So the payment that's due in January 2021 can now be extended to the following January 2022, and that will help businesses obviously spread that load where that's concerned. And I would and the way to do that is they have to apply for that one. To the self-assessment ones, they have to apply for that, just to make sure that they go into that programme. Otherwise HMRC will be chasing. The bit that I've also heard lots of people say is that they've been getting overdue payment reminder letters from HMRC for their payment on account that should have been paid in July. They need to ignore those because actually they're not overdue, because they were allowed to actually bring those forward until next January. So there are things going on. The other thing that I would say is that for HMRC is that you need to contact them, because they are being really, really flexible with everyone, in the sense that if you've got PAYE tax and everything else, that they will actually push that forward for you to actually do so. The only warning on that is if you as a business have applied for furlough funding, they are saying you've applied for furlough funding and you're not paying your tax due to us because of a payroll. So if you're taking a which one do I pay first, it's definitely the PAYE first, because there are extensions for self-employed and self-assessment, sorry, and VAT that are there to do. What I will do, and I'll put a number in the chat, that if people are having difficulty paying taxes of any sort, and also if they're having difficulty paying self-assessment tax, then the number to ring. One last thing, sorry, if each individual has an online account with HMRC, they can do this online and apply for the 12-month extension online for their self-assessment. So that's not to worry, but that will come in automatically. Okay.
Thank you very much for that, and thank you for the number. That's really useful. Ray, have you got anything to add?
Well, I can't speak about HMRC, but I
No.
think that's been very well covered, to be honest with you. So thank you very much for that, Dawn. And also thank you, Councillor, for outlining what is coming up. I know we're all sort of asking questions because nobody really knows at the moment. We have been dealing with, since March, so many companies who have had to change and to move things. I know it's particularly difficult for those who need to bring COVID restrictions, if you like, into place for their staffing and things like that. And it is changing pretty much the way that most businesses are actually working. So, well, even if you're not in a retail space, you still have to put in, health and safety for COVID for your workers. And, and now obviously everybody's back at home and things like that again. So there's a lot of disruption for that. What we have thought, and I guess this has been our standpoint, is that we don't see that this is going away. So yes, we're in the second lockdown, and we did say, all that time ago, after, when we went through the first one, that we felt it was going to happen again, and it's going to keep happening until we have a stable vaccine that's going to allow us to get on with life in more normal. So we're taking sort of a longer term view. So for businesses that have needed to change things, we're looking at their actual business and go, okay, well, if you're making 30% of income as you currently stand, what can we change to bring that income level up? So how can we change your business? How can we pivot? How can we introduce new services? How can we introduce new products and things like that, or new methodologies of delivering to your customers that's going to allow obviously digital is the most common way of fixing that. And for people, there's a lot of learning to do. There's a lot of people who are very reliant on people sort of walking through their store, and now that they don't have that option anymore, they're struggling somewhat because they're not familiar with the digital platforms. They're not familiar with all of the different ways to do things, and so it's a sharp learning curve. I do think that this was going this way anyway, particularly for retail. Going online was the way forward. It is the way forward because then you can obviously reach a much wider audience. I'm not saying it's great to shop local and to work with with local stores and things like that. Support your local economy, definitely. But having said that, you have to take advantage of the new ways of doing things. I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. And even if it does go away, people's habits are changing as to how they're actually shopping. I think it was a figure, I can't remember, it was Google or one of them anyway, came up that, from 2012, there was 24% of people shopping online. Now it's 73% of people doing their shopping online. And that's not including the changes with COVID. Amazon saw a 2 billion increase in their sales between March and July, on top of what they would normally expect. And so that is something that is not going to go away. People aren't, they understand the ease of it and so on. And so it's very important for businesses to get on board with that. Now, one of the things that we have been thinking of doing is because we appreciate that people aren't so au fait with how to go about doing this, is to create virtual fairs and I suppose virtual platforms that local businesses can go on to actually promote and sell their products and services. That is going to be promoted in the local area. So rather than just saying, okay, well, yes, go on Amazon or Etsy or whatever, that there is something for the local community, usually, involved with the local loyalty cards and very much involved with the council and, other support platforms that are already in place. It's utilizing them to give people a new avenue to sell their wares and to sell their services. So this is still evolving. It's, and some of this stuff in some of the areas are still just ideas. But we know that it can be moved very quickly. And what we need businesses to come together, to work together to make this happen and not try and tackle it just on your own in order to put these digital platforms together on your own. Like I said, there's a learning curve, but there's also a cost involved. But if we can do this together as a group, then we can invest in a platform that will help everybody at the same time, and then therefore that cost is actually what would you say, is spread across everybody rather than just on one person's shoulder. And it creates sort of, again, that local environment, because it's one place for people to go to shop local. So that's been sort of the viewpoints that we've been thinking about, and some of the ideas that we've been kicking around to do that, because we very much appreciate that the local economy is such an important thing, and anything that we can do to support it, we absolutely would get on board with.
Thank you for that. I must admit, if we can all, yes, shop local, support our local businesses, and try not to use Amazon, I will be one happy woman. The question actually came from a person who basically a business can't go online. She operates a salt therapy salon. She doesn't like the word we use, salon, because she believes it's giving health properties. This is for people with eczema, with skin conditions, asthma, and this cannot be, her service cannot be sold online, and she is suffering, which, it's a hard one.
It's a very hard one, actually, and we have quite a number of people who are very reliant. I mean, think of things like swimming pools and gyms and all of these kind of guys that are all in this bucket. I mean, the thing is we've had some businesses that there are some types of businesses that unfortunately won't survive long term, because you can't create a new market out of this one. And so we've had a lot of business going, okay, well, we can't do this and we can't do this right now, but what can we do? And we're really talking about introducing new services and new products that are different to what they are. I mean, we've had some people go, well, I can't make the retail side work anymore, so I'm going to go into the marketing side of things, or like they're completely changing what they're doing and re-looking at it. And I'm afraid that there are just some industries that will find it very difficult to continue, and you need to pivot, and in some cases pivot completely in order to survive this. And that's a very difficult message to give people, because obviously they put their heart and their soul into their business, and I really appreciate that, but we can't take blood from a stone. You can't force something, and so we have to change in order to survive on that. And so my heart goes out to that lady, and I'm sure that she has it was a lovely business and it's a super idea and lots of people need it, but we have to come up with other products and services that she can sell.
And in fact, that leads on to another question. The recovery grant money, is it available for businesses? Is it available for businesses that had to close owing to COVID-19? Who would like to have, yes, Tony, do you know about this one?
Well, as I said before, what I read last night, it says you can go right back to March. So whether if you were affected, if you had to shut, you were definitely affected. But even if you didn't have to close, if you were under restricted measures or, shutting early or only doing takeaway, whatever, you could say your business was affected. So the answer is, if you close, it's absolutely yes.
Well, not lovely, but thank you. Thank you for that clarification. A few questions in the question and answers. Hold on, it's rather.
Yeah, I think it's a question about, can you apply for a CBIL loans instead of repay the bounce back loans?
Yes.
That was my answer to the question.
That is your answer. Okay. So,
lovely. So these things are being answered. That's brilliant. The same company I was talking about, Spa de Sal, the salt therapy salon, not like the word salon. She had some information about the Mayor of London's Back to Business Fund, which I thought would be quite interesting to pass on. She qualified for it. She was very excited, and she reached her crowdfunding target of 5,000 and was looking forward to receiving the matched funding, from City Hall, but nothing came through. And then when she went to read the small print, she saw that if you are raising more than 2,500, one must attain the first 25% of the fund by a minimum of 50 people. Does anybody know why? Because basically, she'd raised the money, but it was less than 50 people. So she's, as I say, not impressed at all. So does anybody any answers on this one? And we know why he wants a minimum of 50? No, I couldn't understand it either. So that's why I just wanted to air it today, so people, yeah, know that there is this sort of strange proviso on it.
I mean, Sally, I don't know the answer, but I'm certainly happy to find out and put it in as
could you
casework. Yeah, absolutely, not a problem.
Yeah, because you know it just seems a bit of an anomaly. It just seems a bit strange to me. Right, now over to you, Alan. We've had a query about Kickstart. Do you want to give us a bit of a lowdown on the Kickstart scheme, please?
Sure. Do they give any more details of what the actual question's about, or how does it work in general?
It's just one word. Well, two words, quick start query.
Okay.
Give us the lowdown.
All right, so the lowdown is that Kickstart has been announced by the Chancellor to be rolled out via Chambers of Commerce, coordination with local authorities or other entities around the UK. As a gateway, we need to put in requests for the Department of Work and Pensions to provide people for jobs in batches of a minimum of 30 or more. If you're a major employer, you can put in your own requests, but they have to be in batches of 30 or above. If you're a smaller employer, send them into the chamber and we can group them together with other people that are looking for to employ people and put them into the Department of Work and Pensions as a batch to go through them in the next group on their pipeline. The timescale for those people supposedly is 4 weeks. We're waiting to see if that's correct. We've so far put through 2 batches of 30 to 35, and we've got more people in our pipeline building up as we go along. Once the Department of Work and Pensions are satisfied that all of those are good employers and have done their checks, they'll then pass the people down the pipeline to the Work Centre, Job Centre Plus, who will then be allocated people to supply that demand to us. We'll then pass on multiple options to employers who can then look at the CVs for those people and take the people on board. As far as the numbers are concerned, each employer will get, to start off with, a £1,500 an amount of money from the government via us for taking the people on board, to get them trained and to get them equipped to be able to do the job. I'll come back to that in a second. The next level is we as a gateway get £300 for helping to find those people the positions and getting them into that job. And thirdly, the employers will get remuneration back under a PAYE system on a net monthly account for those people that they employ. The people have to work 25 hours a week and they get paid the government national minimum salary. If you want to pay them more than that or employ them for more hours than that, that's on the employer's account and you have to pay them that yourself. The whole scheme is due to run for 6 months once you employ the person, and the scheme itself will last for through to the end of next year. So it's a long-term scheme to try to get 16 to 24-year-olds, or is it 25, Sally?
I think it's 24.
16 to 24.
16, okay.
16 to 24 years.
Okay, I'm right. So the scheme is to get 16 to 24-year-olds who are currently on universal credit employment. Getting our youngsters to work in this day and age is difficult. A lot of people consider it to be a stepping stone into potential apprenticeship, where you can, to an extent, have a 6-month exposure to the people, see what they're like, understand that they meet your objectives, so before you then take them on as an apprentice and go through to the next level of funding that the government can give you. This is a wonderful scheme. It gives a big opportunity for people to employ youngsters, but they have to prove and show that these people are not being employed on the back of somebody that they've just made redundant. This is a genuine new case for a new person to start. It's a new position, a genuine position. Coming back to the training that I talked about earlier, the £1,500 onboarding is expected to be given to employers so that they can give the person a desk, a PC, a chair, or training. Now, if the employer can't offer that training themselves to get them on board properly, that's something that the Chamber can offer via some of our delivery partners. We'll look to see what levels of training those people want when we're further down the pipeline of having our offers accepted by the Department of Work and Pensions, having people made available to us from JCP, and having those employers understand a bit more about what those new people are going to be doing. As I say, the timeline is from us putting our application into the Department of Work and Pensions, expected to be 4 weeks. This is work in progress from the Department of Work and Pensions. It's supposed to take normally 2 years to roll out a scheme like this. So far, they've done it for 13 weeks and have made some superb progress. But they're making changes as it goes along to make it more workable. And we're yet to see. So if there are employers out there who are interested in taking on new people via Kickstart, send your details through and the details of who you want to Sally Smith at hounslowchamber.org.uk. They'll be acknowledged. We'll send you a form back to get full information from you on the positions, and look forward to working with you on to supply you with your needs. How was that?
Brilliant. To add to that, next week's webinar is going to be all on Kickstart. So that's on the 12th of November at 10 o'clock, when we're going to have Nigel Yates with us and Jaswant Lal from the Hounslow Job Centre. And Nigel is the DWP Kickstart expert. So please do come along to that to learn more about the scheme.
Could have been the shorter version to answer that question. Don't listen to me now. Come back next week and we'll give you more.
It's your chance to actually ask questions of the hall. Right. That leads on to the next question. What action can be taken to ensure that local jobs pay decent living wages that enable staff to spend locally and support business? Alan, you mentioned briefly about the Kickstart is the national minimum wage, and if you want to top it up to the London wage, that's up to you. But what are your thoughts about this question?
So two things. First of all, shop local, shop safe is a big campaign that the council are rolling out hand in hand with us, and is not just in our council area, but is all around London. London's going through what is known as a donut effect. There's a big hole in the middle with not much going on in London. All of the work and shopping and people working from home is all being done in the leafy suburbs where people are. The benefits of this is an element of local shops are getting to see more business. There's a lot less pollution in the air. The bad points of it is the centre of London is looking a bit like a ghost town, unless you see the pictures of last night's news of people in bars in the West End. However, that's not going to last for the next month. And as far as the levels of salary are concerned for Kickstarters, in different boroughs, in Hammersmith and Fulham next door, they're looking for anybody who's employed via the council to be taken on the London living wage as a minimum. So they're looking for employers to top up the government supply paid national minimum wage up to the London living wage. There's different cocktails that's being rolled out by different people. Some gateways are offering to provide all of the onboarding costs, but want to be paid the £1,500 startup grant from the government to do this. So employers need to have a look and see which gateway suits them best, and you should start with us.
Makes total sense to me. The actual training the DWP are talking about, it sort of help with CV writing, interview technique, working in a team. It's not, it's pretty obvious, I think, really. And it's to get these, especially the younger ones, sort of basically work ready, sort of, timekeeping, presentation skills, things like this. So yeah, as I say, please do try to be with us next week. Another question I have, it's probably been covered already, but as I say, repetition is no bad thing. Businesses, more specifically company directors, that have not been able to take advantage of the furlough scheme nor the self-employed grant are facing further discrimination by the government when the minimum income floor is reintroduced to universal credit. Many company directors are not taking dividends, but instead focusing on reinvesting in the business to help it grow. Can pressure be put on the government to extend the relaxation until Q2 2021? Who would like to have a little chat about that one?
I can go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant.
Yeah, hi. Furlough, directors can take a furlough if the business is not operating in a normal way, and if they're not able to operate. Directors are not stopped to take any furlough. They can take a furlough in these times. There is a new furlough which is extended from November and December for directors or employees who have missed the furloughs from April onwards, from April till October, as they were not qualified because they were not on the payroll. As long as you're on the payroll and there's an RTS submissions till 30th of October, you can avail the grants, this particular extension grant from the government. So director can absolutely claim it. A director are allowed during the furlough to do their statutory responsibilities while claiming the furlough. So that's not an issue with the government, whether they're giving the data to the accountant for the VAT filing, or they're doing the confirmation statements or the accounts. So those statutory duties are allowed for the director while being on the furlough. So they can absolutely take a furlough. Regarding the dividends, they are only not allowed to take if they have taken the bounce back loans or CBIL loans, because bounce back loans and CBIL loans are purely for the purpose of the business, for the support of the business, but not for the directors to take any director loans or any dividends. Those are only purely out of your profit. So government might relax that in the future. We don't know about it, but logically that money is given to support the business. That money is not given for the director or businesses to take money out. So that money is available in this hard times to expand the business, to pivot your business model. That's what I think the last 6 months, everybody has gone through the lockdown, and that's what most of the businesses have pivoted their model. They've invested more into their e-commerce and online businesses. So there where government is asking to support, and government is also supported in terms of furlough, they've supported in terms of various different grants. So there's a lot of help available for the business. And obviously government is trying their best. They're also in a very, very difficult situation in this scenario. And hopefully, Chancellor will announce more business measures. There are already measures out there to, extend your VAT payment, even for the self-employment. Filing is required to be done on time, but you can pay your liability over the period of time. So HMRC is absolutely flexible. All you need to do is inform them that I have an issue, and they're not asking a second question. They are not going to ask you, and the normal course, they'll ask you, okay, show me your income and expenses, and then we will make a payment plan for you. But in this time, they know that businesses are in the difficulty. All you need to do is reach out to them and agree a payment plan with them. So answer to the question, directors can take the furlough, and dividends is not allowed because that money is available purely for the source of business.
Sally, if I could just jump in. I think what the question was actually asking or highlighting was a lot of directors pay themselves absolute minimum amounts of money because they're ploughing the profits back into the company rather than taking them as salary. So if they were to try and apply for furlough, they're only being furloughed on a very tiny amount of money, which is not enough to live on, obviously. And this has been highlighted since day one of all the lockdown measures. And be absolutely blunt about it, the government has done nothing. There was a Treasury Select Committee set up that said, kept coming up with these numbers like 2 million people have been ignored and left behind, all that, and absolutely nothing has been done for them whatsoever. And I can't see them doing anything in future, to be honest. The Institute for Self-Employed People came out again as soon as lockdown was announced, saying yet again all of these people have been completely ignored if they don't come under the self-employed support scheme or they don't come under furlough. And there's about at least a couple of million of them. And the government's answer is go on universal credit. So I'm sorry to say, being absolutely blunt, I don't think anything's going to happen for those people because it hasn't in the last 8-9 months.
Just to add to Tony's point about the directors taking minimum wage, actually it could be a genuine case, but mostly directors are on the nominal wages and taking the higher dividends as a tax strategy. So they will be paying less PAY tax, less NI tax.
Now that's true, Prashant, but
yeah.
if you read the cases of this person, so a lot of people don't even fall into that.
Wages.
They just don't take the money out full stop.
Yes, especially during this.
They take the absolute minimum they can get away with to live on. They're putting all the money back into the company.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think the ones who have just for tax planning purposes decided to pay themselves the PAYE threshold figure and then take all the rest in dividends, that's tax planning that's come home to roost, really, because they've had all the benefit of that for several years, and now they're having to pay the price for that benefit. I think this is more, they did highlight there's up to a couple of million people that just pay themselves the absolute bare minimum because all the money's got to go back into the business. And they're the ones that can't, well, they can claim furlough, but it's on a pittance. So 80% of virtually nothing is virtually nothing.
Yes,
Gosh.
during this tough times here. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Alan. Sorry. Thank you. That's quite interesting. You all know that you probably all remember my daughter runs. She's a freelance theatre producer. Yes. So she eventually ended up on universal credit, which is great. She then got a job in a restaurant in Peckham, which is now obviously being closed. So I'm hoping to hear she's been furloughed. But she did actually manage to successfully get some money from Rishi Sunak, the Culture Recovery Fund. So that is, there is some positive news out there. So I just wanted to broadcast that. So it's lovely when you hear about these schemes and then you actually hear of somebody who's actually benefiting from it, which is terrific. As also, I think Waterman's Arts Centre as well got some money, which is brilliant. Alan, do you want to? We've got we're almost at the end, but Alan, are you able to tell us a bit about the Safe Shop Local scheme that we're working on with the council, with our marshals? Just a brief sort of 5 minutes update.
Sure. So when the shops reopened in July, we were asked by the council to operate a service to help shoppers, especially the smaller private shops, understand exactly what they needed to provide to make sure that people were safe and secure in their shops, COVID secure, obeying the right COVID regulations, understanding the requirement for masks, understanding the requirement for hand washing, sanitizing, understanding the right levels of protection that they needed to have behind their own shop screens, and the amount of people in the shops. This was rolled out quite successfully across the entire borough, not just the major shopping centres, but the very small areas as well, in Cranford and Heston and Osterley. So people got more confidence. Shopping footfall in the boroughs then managed to slowly work its way up to 80% of the levels that we were at a year ago in places like Feltham, Hounslow Centre and Chiswick. As these numbers started to then drop away in October, we were asked to change the focus of what the delivery was, more to have a health focus on it, as there were pop-ups and waves of this coronavirus increasing in its capacity in different areas of the borough, so that the smaller shops understood that that they could advertise to people coming in that you need to be even more vigilant, you need to be even more careful, avoid contact, make sure you're wearing masks. And then as newer regulations and the rule of 6 came along, we needed to focus on people's attention that they had to be in less than groups of 6 going into shops. Everybody had to wear a mask. that sanitising was required and that QR codes needed to be displayed in all shops where people would perhaps sit down or would stay a while. Congregate is the key word that was used. We're now come to an end of that October level. We're now moving on to the next phase with the new lockdown regulations that have just come out. We're trying to get our heads around understanding what this means. Today's the first day of that physical lockdown, but there is a click and collect service that shops can work towards. There is a takeaway service that restaurants can supply. Pubs have been told that they can operate on a takeaway service. So exactly how this is going to operate, exactly how you're going to manage the groupings of people going along to collect food, exactly how you're going to make sure that the 2-metre distancing is in place outside supermarkets where the stickers once used to be on the floor that have all slowly been worn away and all need to be put back down again. Is a whole new raft of things that we're slowly working towards with the council to implement and deliver to try and keep our borough as safe as possible. I've talked about one of the benefits of seeing shopper numbers go up and then come down slightly. The other big thing is that Hounslow for a while, a few months ago, was topping the table in the amount of new cases in London. That's now, we've come down the table to be number 6, number 7 also, and numbers are not anywhere near as high as new cases as they were increasing to be in our borough. So we're having some effect with what we're doing, with what the council are doing, with what shopkeepers are doing, to try and present a united front to keep a lid on this horrendous pandemic that we're all facing.
Thank you very much, Alan, for that lowdown. As I say, we're working very closely with the council on this, and I think it is slowly beginning to work. We're virtually at the end. I would like each of you just to tell me what you think. Do you think lockdown, when we get to the 2nd of December, is it going to continue? I'm just going to go. I'm looking at Dawn because you're to the left of me on my screen. So Dawn, what are your thoughts? Do you think is this going to continue, or will it end?
I don't think it will continue in the format that it is at the moment. So when Boris stood up, he went and did actually say that it is definitely ending on the 2nd of December. And I believe that it will end in this format. It will be something different. We will go back into the tiers and we will try and manage it from the tiers. But if the rate doesn't come down, then I think he'll introduce something else.
Okay, thank you. Prashant, what are your thoughts?
Yes, similar to what Dawn said, it totally depends on the data. At the moment, the data is quite high, so it's likely to be extended. But considering the retail and the Christmas coming in, and most of the business happen, almost like 1/3 of the business happens for the retailers in Christmas. So I think government don't want to take that risk. They might end this in the first week of December and allow those 2 or 3 weeks for the businesses to reopen and get the business. Otherwise, it's going to be a very big disaster for the business for this year. They'll be losing out for all the business what they can do. So my assumption, it might end in the first week of December, but it totally depends on the data, how the data is come down. Yeah.
Nick.
I need to take rather an opposite view. I think unless the R number goes below 1, they will continue it, because I don't think they'll find another option. And if the government have said they're not going to do it, they will.
Thank you. Shantanu.
Yeah, I actually agree with Nick. And actually Prashant and Dawn as well. The data is really, really important, and you want to see the rate going down. I suppose experience tells us in the first lockdown it took 6 months before we were at a level where the government was sort of happy, and we'll leave aside arguments about when we should have gone into lockdown at that point. But certainly looking at the sort of spikes that we're seeing at the moment, I can't see how 4 weeks will have a material impact. I mean, there's a lot of behaviour change, and I suppose, you know, if you come out of lockdown on the 2nd of December and go into the tiered system, you run the risk of repeating the problem that we've had at the moment. So whilst I can see a scenario, as Dawn has mentioned, that we'll go into a tiered system, I would imagine there'll be a tiered which is identical to what we're going through at the moment, just not called a lockdown for appearance's sake.
Thank you. Ray, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, look, from purely a numbers point of view, I think it takes a minimum of 6 weeks for any sort of changes to be seen, and 4 weeks is not it. So I could imagine that it's going to go for at least 6 weeks. I mean, the time of year, I take Prashan's point, the time of year is a very difficult one. I would say that, you know, the majority of people can still do their shopping online. So I'm not sure if that's going to make that much of an effect. As long as the money is still being spent, the Exchequer still gets some money, so they'll be happy enough with that. People will find a way to buy for Christmas. I do think also that the attitude of people has changed, whereas, you know, in the first lockdown, nobody had a clue what was going on and everybody was very scared and very nervous. And I think now, particularly with sort of the younger generations, they're a bit like, well, you know, I might get a cold, or I lose my sense of taste for a couple of days, whatever. And then people are, you know, breaking the rules a little bit more. And certainly, you know, I don't know if you guys noticed, but as soon as Dominic Cummings did what he wanted, so did the rest of the UK. And I haven't seen that many people have gone, well, let's rein it back in. I think this is going to make people better, but I don't think people are going to be as locked in as they were the first time round, because people understand the effects a lot better. Obviously, I don't think there's many people going to be irresponsible in case they pass it on to their mother or their father or their grandparents or anything like that. But I think it will take longer to take an effect because of that, and also because the schools remain open. So you're still going to get spreading to the older population.
Thank you. Marcus.
Yeah, very much echo. I don't think this will be over by December. And I'm sure there'll be creative solutions from the politicians to try and badge it as something different or come up with new schemes, new names. But I think we have to adjust to the situation that this isn't going to go away quickly, and probably will the pandemic in one way or another will continue into next year. That's the reality we're facing. And yeah, it's incumbent on us to be as creative as we can be to try and do business and interact in a way that is safe and that supports some economic activity without pushing too much pressure on health matters. Because staying locked in, we all have heard the mental health debates and all the other negative impacts that come with, if you're entirely locked into your house for 4 weeks, that's also not good. While it might reduce the R rate, it creates other problems. So I think it's time to maybe be honest and allow the politicians to say, okay, something hasn't worked, we need to try something different. The tiered system clearly didn't work, so we're here in a national situation again, and we need to come up with better solutions, and failure is part of that learning process. And I would appreciate it if politicians were able to stand up and say, this hasn't worked, I'm now going to try this, rather than trying to paper over cracks all the time.
Thank you. Tony.
Yeah, I'm going to be quite blunt, I think. I agree with Nick entirely. None of us can tell what's going to happen because the government doesn't have a clue what's going to happen. So yes, as Dawn said, Boris came out and said this will definitely end on the 2nd of December, and Michael Gove came out the next morning and said this can carry on as long as we feel like. So I think that sums up exactly what's going on. Could I just say on a more positive note, what I meant to say earlier about, you may have heard of something called the COVID-19 Recovery Grant, which has been administered through the local growth hubs, which allows SMEs to claim anywhere between £1,000 and £5,000 for help to get over the effects of COVID. Now that can be paying for advice for someone like Nick or Prashant, to give you legal advice, financial advice, people like me to help you get funding. It could be to buy a new laptop, to do some marketing. And it's been astonishing because some growth hubs put their grants out 2 months ago and all went within a sort of 45 minutes. The London Business Hub has announced they're opening their applications on the 10th of November for companies related to tourism and the visitor economy. and they're opening on the 17th of November for every other business. So it's businesshub.london is their address. So just a general point, if you go to your growth hubs, they are the custodians of a lot of money from the government. Things like the peer network scheme is being run by growth hubs. These discretionary grants for the COVID-19, which is all ERDF funded money, not government money. But the government money as well is often administered through the growth hubs, and they are your best source. So you've got the London Growth Hub and you've got the London Business Hub. So if you're actually outside of the technical London area, go to your local growth hub. If you just Google local growth hubs, you'll find there's 38 of them across the UK, and there's a map on their website you can click on and it'll tell you where yours is. So please do go and check that out for grants, and particularly the London Business Hub, opening on the 10th and again on the 17th of November for these discretionary recovery grants, as they're calling them.
As you know, I'm sending out daily work life updates, and that information is going to be in today's update when I send it out later on today.
Yeah, there aren't many of them, by the way, but it is still open. And on their website, it even says how many they think they'll be able to give, and it's in the hundreds rather than the thousand, but it's still there, so someone's going to get it.
Brilliant.
As I say, if you don't buy a ticket, you don't win the lottery.
You've got to be in it to win it.
Yeah.
Right, a last word, well, not last word from Alan, because I've got another question for Shantanu, but I think possibly that Nick has answered it in the Q&A box, so I shall not ask that question. So it will be the final word to Alan. Alan, what are your thoughts about lockdown?
I always think that looking at people's past actions are a good guide to their future intentions. And we were first told that we would go into lockdown in the first part of this year for 3 months, for 3 weeks. And look how long that lasted. However, having said that, who would want to be the Prime Minister that cancelled Christmas? So I think he's going to give us a lockdown, open us up for Christmas, and then lock us down again very quickly afterwards in January, having given shops a chance to take some money and spread the virus a bit more. Do your shopping online or go to the Treaty Centre, Chiswick High Street, or the centre in Feltham, where we've all helped to make it very safe.
Brilliant. A lovely thing to end on. Sorry, I was a bit distracted because I've just seen Councillor Steve Curran outside the window. So I've just waved to him saying I'm on a Zoom meeting with you, Shantanu. So that's nice to see our leader walking the streets.
Is he trying to get in on our meeting secretly from outside, Sally?
Possibly. Okie dokie, I think that's it for this morning. Thank you so much for your time. As I say, the next webinar is going to be the 12th of November on Kickstart. We will be holding these Business Taskforce webinars more in the future. We will sort of be mix and matching the panelists. So thank you so much indeed, and basically keep safe and just keep on in there. And if you've got a problem, please do come to your local Chamber of Commerce. All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.